Alright, this is a presentation on data management. When graphing, all graphs must include a title, information on the vertical and horizontal axis, even spacing, evidence of a ruler, accurate representation of the information, and proper intervals. If you look at this graph below, it has a title, marks of students in grade 5, information on the vertical axis, number of students, on the horizontal axis, marks. The intervals or the bars are spaced evenly, 2 boxes apart. And yeah, the intervals go up consistently by ones. You can go up by ones, twos, fives, whatever you choose, just as long as it's appropriate and consistent. Okay, pictographs have evenly spaced images that represent a number, a title, and a key that lets the reader know how much each picture represents. For instance, this house equals 4 days. Now, if you look, half of a house would then equal 2 days, a quarter of a house would equal 1 day, and 3/4 of a house would equal 3 days. Information from data. From data, students should be able to find the mean, mode, and range. Mean, add the totals in all categories together and then divide the number by the number of categories. So if you have 6 categories and they all add up to 24, you would take 24 divided by 6, which equals 4. The mean would be 4. The mode, the number that occurs the most. So when you're looking at a set of numbers, if a number appears more than once and no other number does that, then that would be the mode. Range, the difference between the largest number and the smallest number. For instance, if you were measuring the precipitation throughout the year and it said that May had 50 milliliters milliliters of precipitation, and say October had 13, and 50 was the highest and 13 was the lowest, you would take 50, subtract 13, and whatever you would find would be the range. So I believe that would be 37. Bias. There are 4 ways we studied that students can create bias in data management. 1, change the interval on a line or bar graph. This affects how the line or bar graph will look, and we'll show you a picture of that after this. 2, use a jagged or squiggle line on a vertical axis to start your intervals at a number greater than 0. 3, ask a survey question that has limited answers. We used the example in class. Instead of asking what you like to do on playground, you could ask a question like, what sport do you like to play on playground, if you wanted to find information about sports or make it look like Bayview Glen plays a lot of sports on playground. Number 4 is take a sample of people that is not random. So if you wanted to find out a question like, what does Bayview Glen like to play with in their free time, and you were hoping to get a certain type of answer, maybe you wanted to show people doing a lot of figure skating. Well, then you would find out and ask a sample of people that are inclined to figure skate, that figure skate on the free time. That would cause your graph to look like a lot of people at Bayview Glen figure skate, which would not be a random sample of people. And here are images of bias. So if you looked at the picture on the left with the pink bars, this is how changing the interval can affect bias. It's also what happens when you don't start at 0. If you look on the right, they start at 400, okay, and they go up by a larger or a smaller interval, as is there too. Whereas on the left, in favorite shampoo, they start at 0 and it looks a lot more even. Again, here, instead of starting at 0 on the right, they start at 240, and they use a different interval. They go up by tens to create larger bars and difference between them. The smaller the interval is, the larger the difference is going to be on the bar. The last one, there isn't evidence of bias because there isn't a graph really plotted yet, but this is an example of the jagged or squiggle line. You can use the jagged or squiggle line to indicate that you're not showing all the numbers and that you're not starting at 0. So although you're going up by intervals of 25, you're starting at 625. And that is the correct way to do that. In these bar graphs, they have done that incorrectly. What is expected of you? So for the end of unit assignment, you're expected to be able to create a survey question, to collect information correctly, to represent that information in at least 2 types of proper graphs, to interpret your information and find the mean, mode, and range, to interpret the finding of your graph to make conclusions, and to identify if your graph is biased or not. Good luck, and don't be afraid to ask any questions.